Hey guys, welcome back to Topic Tantrum. So, the couple things have been on my mind lately. The Nintendo Switch, I've been wanting to buy it for a while, but I guess I can't really justify that it's $300 plus. Let's say you want to buy like a Pro controller, you're gonna spend, I believe, $70, $80. If you want an extra set of Joy-Cons, that's another, I think, $70, $80. But I cannot justify it to myself to buy it right now. I can see sometime during the holidays when there's a little bit more games out, because right now I think they're just releasing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which I already have that for the Wii U. I don't know. I guess I don't know what would make me really want to buy it. I've heard such good things about Zelda, but that's the only thing that's really out there that's actually worth playing. I mean, they do have little smaller games. I forgot what. I wish I could look on the computer right now, but I'm just trying to do this off the top of my head. Snipper Clips. That's what it's called. Snipper Clips, that's one of the games. It's like a little bit of a smaller game, but it's still supposed to be a really good game. But those are the only two games that I can justify buying the system for. Zelda, I know you're going to get like 50 to 100 hours, just depending on if you want to do the collectibles and everything. But I've heard such good things from Zelda. You know, of course, sometimes the hype is way more when a game first comes out. I mean, people are giving it 10 out of 10, perfect scores. I believe it. I mean, it's not like it's that far from the truth. They did make an open world game, which is what people have always wanted since like Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess. Yes, it's been an open world, but it's not really necessarily been completely free, or like a sandbox game as they call it. It's almost like a little bit of a mix of Skyrim mixed with Zelda, essentially. And I think that game is worth buying a Switch for, but the problem is what happens when you get done with that game. I'm one of those people who's like, I'll play a game, but I want something that already is lined up after that. So like, let's say I wait till summer, then I have Zelda. Let's say I finish that, I get tired of playing it maybe. Then you got Splatoon, which I never got to play the first one. The first one I always wanted to play. I just never got a chance to do it. Splatoon 2 seems like they pretty much perfected everything from the first one. So that's definitely a game I would love to play if I had bought it in the summer. You get Snipper Clips, of course. But the big one that a lot of people are waiting for is, of course, Mario Odyssey. The one where it like kind of takes place in New York City. When I first saw the trailer of that, when they had the Switch event reveal, I think it was like March 3rd. Or that's when the thing actually came out. The conference, I think it was in January. I remember seeing that game, and the fact that it was kind of surreal that Mario was walking around New York City. It's weird how they're mixing real, like almost like real life mixed with Mario. And I thought it's cool. It's fun. I'm wondering how it will translate into the game. Like, I'm wondering if that's the open world. I wonder how the stages are going to be, because, you know, Mario always has stages, unless somehow they're going to incorporate the real world into an actual stage. So, like, he's actually going to be doing stages in the real world versus how in Mario 64 they jumped through paintings, and each, you know, painting was like its own separate stage or world, etc. But I think that's another game that's going to be really interesting. But for me personally, I almost feel like I might as well just wait till like November, December to get one versus now, because I feel like I get done with Zelda. Yeah, maybe I play Snipper Clips. Bomberman, I never really cared for. It's a great game, but it's almost like the same formula every single time with a little bit of new additions, which is also what Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is, essentially all the DLC included with the original game from Wii U. But it has, I believe, a couple extra characters and maybe another Grand Prix on top of that. But for some reason, I guess that game is just so fun to me. I love it, that I would consider buying that game again, because I don't usually like buying games repeatedly, the same game over and over. I do not like to buy remastered editions and so on. It's only if I have not played a game, or if I just love a game. It's very rare for me. So like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I would buy. That one I can see, except I don't believe that it should be a $60 game though. if it is $60, which I know it will be because it's Mario Kart, I don't believe it should be that. At most, like maybe it's say 50 or a little bit lower, but I know that's not a possibility essentially. Uh, and that I can see myself buying. Another game that I would be really interested in buying, like a remaster, is a series that I have beaten. It's God of War. God of War, the remastered edition, is awesome. I just love Greek mythology. It's actually been something that I've been getting into a lot lately. But God of War with Greek mythology, I think they just do a great job with the game, especially if you like Greek mythology. The fact that you get to see a violent adaptation of it, which is not to say it wasn't violent, but I've been reading a little bit of Percy Jackson lately, and it's almost like a kid version of that. And yes, I know it's a teen book. They have to appeal to the audience, which is similar to like Harry Potter, but Percy Jackson is almost like a kid version of the Greek mythology. I love that God of War makes everything violent and that it actually, like, you can beat the shit out of people. That's what makes it awesome. I would be more willing to buy that remaster just for the fact of I love seeing the extra stuff that they might have added to it. I love the world. I love the bosses. The bosses, like fighting a Titan in that game, is awesome. I love it. And on top of that, I think some of the bosses, like being able to look, if you haven't played God of War 1, 2, or 3, I think by now you kind of, I want to say spoiler warning. So if you're listening to this, spoiler warning for God of War, any of the 1, 2, or 3 games. I'll give you a second or two. 1, 2. All right. So essentially, when you're fighting Zeus at the end, I believe it's number 2. I think number 2 is probably my favorite game out of the whole series. It's the fact of, I know we're going off topic from the Switch, but I don't care. So God of War, number 2, I think is my favorite one because at the end of God of War, you realize that Zeus is like waging a war and everything, and that they don't like you. Like, not a lot of the gods like you. But being able to fight Zeus at the very end is pretty epic. And running up the tower, where they have this cinematic where I believe like he's climbing the tower. It'd been like 5+ years since I played number 2, but I think number 2 was my favorite game because I remember getting it on launch day. That's how bad I want it. And usually I don't buy games unless it's something major that I want. Like, about World of Warcraft, like Burning Crusade. I forgot what it was. It was the second expansion to World of Warcraft. But usually I will not go out to like midnight releases. Sometimes for certain consoles, but it just depends. But the remaster, I would definitely play God of War, the remaster of 1, 2, and 3. Those games I love. Fighting, even the beginning of God of War 2, where I believe you're fighting that statue, like the big statue he has like a blue mouth. And I even wanted to get the art book for it. The art book, it's really interesting to see how they adapt the Greek mythology into a real life thing, or like, a video game. And the artwork of it is really good. And recently, in last E3, they had the God of War new game for PlayStation 4. That looks super interesting because I did not notice it was God of War until, you notice Kronos, but you're not quite sure because he looks so different. He looks almost realistic, but you're not quite sure how he looks. I guess maybe it had been some time, but he looked drastically different. He looked more like a Viking than he did God of War. I think that game looks like it's going to be amazing, but it looks interesting because it doesn't look like the exact kind of same thing that they've had in 1, 2, and 3. And I remember being surprised that it was God of War by the end of the trailer, but that one I'm definitely looking forward to. I don't have a PlayStation 4, and I do not have a Switch or an Xbox One. I actually do not have any of the generations just because, whatever money or, whatever, the usual things that people complain about. I'm sure you want to listen to me complain about that. Anyways, I do not have any of the current generation. I essentially have a Wii U, PlayStation 3, and a, oh my God, I'm blanking, Xbox 360. Those I have. I don't see anything that's like really, really, really makes me want to spend the money other than the Switch for Zelda. But like I said, I can't justify that. PlayStation 4 seems like it's going to be my more likely, that's my most likely system to get, or my more likely system that I want to get, just for the fact of all the games that are coming out for that. The Switch, I think, is my number one, but it won't become my number one until games start coming out for it. It seems like it has a really slow start. So I listen to like people like this Completely Unnecessary podcast, or the CU podcast, which is a really good podcast, by the way. Pat, the NES Punk on YouTube. You should check out his podcast. I like listening to it. I don't really get to participate in his community and everything. I don't know, maybe I'm bad about it. But he has a really good podcast where he goes over the Switch with Ian. But I believe he's having like health problems right now. And I'll usually listen to him talk about the Switch. I'll listen to people on YouTube talk about the Switch. And it seems like there's so many of the similar themes of people are buying it or getting it. But after Zelda, there's not quite anything. I feel like if I get it, it will collect dust the whole time. That's one of the things I'm a little bit iffy about. But the PlayStation 4, I've just seen so many games come out for it. And on top of that, there are games that have already came out, like Bloodborne. I've already talked about that like a shitload in the second one, the second Topic Tantrum. But that one is a game that I still want to play. And I already said I don't really necessarily love playing the Dark Souls / Demon Souls / Bloodborne series. But I think I need to own that game. It's one of those things. I may suck at it, but I think I need to own that game just for the fact of the art. But yeah, so back on topic, the Switch, I think I'll probably end up getting that somewhere around holiday time. That's more likely the case, because at least it will be a plethora of games. Can't believe I just used the word plethora, but whatever. There'll be a cornucopia of games. Anyways. Man, I don't know how you guys are listening to these bad jokes. It's probably why I only have one listener, and that's me. Anyways, so that's probably going to be more likely the case. But I think right now, PlayStation 4 seems to be the one that I would be most likely to go out and buy today. That just tends to be the case, just with the games that are coming out and the games that have already been out, and the remaster of The Last of Us. The Last of Us is a great game. But I feel upset at myself because usually if I don't play a game, I'll just kind of ignore it and it will go by. And then maybe in like 2 or 3 years, I'll play it. So I guess I let it get the better of me. And that's like one of the best games. I don't know why I decided to do it. It's just the ending. I wanted to know the ending because I remember renting it from Redbox for like 2 or 3 days. And I only got so far because I didn't have, the most amount of time to play. But I watched the ending, and I'm not going to spoil it, but I watched the ending, and I'm like, damn, that was a good ending. Like, I understand why it gets, like, perfect 10s, or why it's considered one of Naughty Dog's best games, that in the Uncharted series for the action sequences, but man, that was a good ending. If you haven't played The Last of Us, play that game. If you don't have it, figure out how to play it. But yeah, get that game. I'm sure like the remaster is probably more expensive than the original PlayStation 3 title, but that's a game that's definitely worth playing through. Even if you don't play video games and you're listening to this, I know I'm talking a lot about video games, but that's tend to what I like to listen to myself. I even listen to podcasts too. That's what I tend to like myself. But I'll listen to like Joe Rogan Experience and everything, but play that game. That's definitely worth, even if you don't play video games, you'll still enjoy it. It's a little bit difficult because of some of the zombies, like the clickers and everything. You have to be a little bit stealthy. But for the most part, you'll really enjoy the narrative to it. It's the narrative that makes it awesome. And it runs on, I believe, it looks like it's Uncharted 4 kind of engine, which that's another game I have not played. So like I've gotten a little bit through The Last of Us, probably to the middle. But another one of the games is Uncharted series. I played 1 and 2, and I'm pretty sure I beat 3. I just can't remember because I think number 2 was considered one of the better ones for me. I'm pretty sure I beat 3. I really want to play Uncharted 4. And I remember one of my friends was watching one of the Let's Plays on his TV, and it just looked so colorful, that the fact that you go to like certain islands and stuff like that. But I just love the action sequences. I think I'm a sucker for action sequences in a lot of the games, not necessarily the platforming. because I guess I'm a fan of like the '80s action movies, like Predator and like Last Action Hero kind of movies. Rocky. All the typical ones. Karate Kid. I love like action sequences that they come up with, or montages, or like some crazy thing that's like he's hanging off a ladder, for I don't know, so many miles into the sky off a plane or something like that, almost like cliffhanger. But I love games like that, and those are some of the games that I want to buy for PlayStation 4. But see how there's so many more games already? Because PlayStation 4, yes, it's been out for a while, but I think I don't have everything in front of me right now, but I think the PlayStation 4 had a stronger launch lineup than the Switch. And I'm sure I'm probably really fucking wrong on that, so feel free to email me or, use Twitter or Instagram. Or actually, I also want to say I uploaded these on YouTube, but I'll probably talk about that at the end or the beginning. I'll probably just edit in a clip. But feel free to leave comments if I'm wrong, but I would seem that PS4 had a lot stronger of a lineup than the Switch, because the Switch really only has like 2 strong games, and then it's like, whatever until the holidays. But it seems like all these games that I want to play Uncharted 4, and that's been out for a while. But those are, those are some of the games. So, like, if I really had to say, I'd rather get a PS4 before a Wii U right now. But I think come the holiday, I'd rather have the Wii U. It may not have a huge backlog, but at least by then, there'll probably be more games out. And I'm sure there'll be some surprises. And I don't know why, but lately I've been playing older games. I don't know why. For example, I'm playing Dragon Quest IX on the Nintendo DS. I have a 3DS XL. I play that game on there. I'm not a huge fan of RPGs. I used to be a fan of RPGs, back in Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9. And that actually is considered one of my favorites. Final Fantasy 8 is one of my favorites. Just, I don't know why, but that's what I enjoy. I don't know why I keep saying I don't know why. But so Final Fantasy VIII is one of my favorites, and I have not really played RPGs since then. There haven't been any that, other than, I believe, Ni no Kuni is one of the games that, because I think it's made by, Level 5 and Studio Ghibli kind of animations and everything. That's the only game that I would go back and play, just for the fact of I love the animation style, and I think, which is actually probably need to add to my ever-growing art book thing. I think I'm going to get that art book if it does exist. I need to go search this after. If only I had a way to look up shit so you didn't hear the keyboard click the whole time. But I'm slowly learning everything for podcasting, since I never really do this. I guess I'm getting a little bit better at talking to myself, which is really strange. Ni no Kuni is one of the games I would love to play, but I've been playing Dragon Quest IX on the Nintendo DS. The Nintendo DS, Dragon Quest IX, is a pretty straightforward RPG. It's not complicated. You don't need to know tactics. You don't need to do all these crazy things. It's not super complicated with all these systems and jobs and everything. It's pretty straightforward for the most part. And I know I'm not doing it justice how I'm explaining the game, but right now, essentially, you're a celestial, kind of angel-ish thing that fell from the sky of a tower. And now you're on Earth with all the other mortals that you were supposed to protect. And essentially you're on this long quest where you're supposed to, help people along to get back to where you originally were. But essentially it's a lot of talking. So there's a lot of, it's an RPG. What are you expecting? It's a lot of talking. There is a lot of grinding. That's another thing. I think so many hours in, I'm starting to get to the point where I'm like, oh man, I haven't grinded in a while. But you get weaker party members level 1, and you're already level 9, so you have to spend 30 minutes essentially grinding, and the combat is super simplistic. You barely have to even think about it. You could just attack, and just use a couple spells here and there. But it's pretty simple, and you're just racking up the XP. The only thing that I never understood is, why do you have to go to the church to figure out how much XP that each character needs until they get to the next level, when they could just display a bar within the menu? But I mean, I guess that's just me. And I also hate that it doesn't have. You have to go to the church also to save like the save points, because I feel like now we've gotten so far. But I guess the game was made back in 2010. I wish they had checkpoints where it auto saved, kind of like how computers and like consoles do nowadays. I wonder if they can do that. I'm pretty sure they can do that on Nintendo 3DS by now, at least the games, where you don't have to like consciously think about saving. But the game is pretty straightforward. The combat is super simplistic, but the enemies are like cute and fun, and like they are really cool about their enemies. And it's a series, I guess, that never really got big here. Another guy that I also watch is, not to go all over the place, but Happy Console Gamer on YouTube. He does a pretty big Dragon Quest series review, or going through each individual game, telling you a little bit about it. And he also has another recommendation video of like, if you want to get into the series, which games to start on. And I believe he says that DS games are probably the best ones to get started, like 4, 5, and 6. But another good one is Dragon Quest VIII on the PlayStation 2. But I believe they recently released it for the Nintendo 3DS, Dragon Quest VIII. And I was considering buying that one when I got done with, let's say, 9. Since it's easier for me to play on the go than it is, because I'm not always in a stationary area. So like let's say driving from one place to another place, and sometimes I'll have downtime, and that's usually when I'll play, for example. I did buy Dragon Quest VIII a long time ago at one point for PlayStation 2. I don't remember why, but I remember returning it back to, like, it was from Half Price Books. I remember returning it back to the store. And I don't know why I did it. Maybe I wasn't feeling the game at the point, or I think there was a period where I wasn't really into RPGs at all, but I remember returning it back to the store, and that was it. And I think I got something else, like Champions of Norrath, or I don't know. It was some action RPG. But yeah, Dragon Quest IX, which often reminds me about Diablo. Dragon Quest IX is a pretty good game if you like all the traditional RPG elements of grinding, talking to people, finding items, going out of your way to find items, fighting bosses. The bosses are really the only time that you have to put some thought into your battle, like healing and like who you want to do what. That's probably the only time, but I'm only like, let's say 5 or 6 hours in, which is like nothing in those type of games. But there's the usual cast of characters, the slimes, all the cute characters that they have enemies and everything. Those are all traditional. There's nothing like major change, but it's one of those where you enjoy. It feels good to level your character, But that's been one of the games that I've been playing, and also I noticed that I'm a fan of that game, but I think for RPGs I tend to go more towards action RPGs, like Diablo 3. That's been a game that's been out since like a while. I think like 2010, 11, or somewhere around there. I've been playing that game on and off since then. They've been releasing new patches where I believe Tristram was there, and then they added that, one of the old towns from Diablo 1, and then they also, I think recently, are doing like a closed beta for the Necromancer update, which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you have to pay for that one. It's almost like considered a, in quotes, expansion pack. That is all, I think, that I've been doing. Going back to God of War and stuff, I've been reading Percy Jackson, but that's like a really old series from like 2005. I almost feel like sometimes I'm reading all this stuff and it's like way too late. It's not too late to do it. It just feels like it's, I guess that's why I talk about it on the podcast. There's like no one to talk about it with. It sucks that the movies like crashed and burned. Because I had someone tell me that the movie sucked. Like how at least Harry Potter did the books justice, to a certain extent. Apparently Percy Jackson like crashed and burned after the second movie. Like after the second movie, they just said, fuck it. This is terrible. I saw the trailer to the first movie, and I was going to check out the first movie. I have not yet. I'm probably going to update you maybe next week or something. Or whenever I don't know. I would just upload these sporadically. But I'm probably going to check out the movie just to see how bad it is, apparently. Like, it's not apparently terrible, but then the second one is apparently, like, real trash versus, like, the first one. And I'm sure, like, people work hard on these movies, but, I mean, why phone it in? If you see Harry Potter's doing so great, why would you do such a crappy job? Because apparently, like, even the camp that all the campers, they have this Half-Blood Hill, which is the camp where all these campers go, and they're all divided into cabins where the Greek mythology, like each of Poseidon had the cabin, Hermes had the cabin, or whoever had the cabin, each god. And I'm probably not doing justice explaining this, but in the movie, apparently it's just like old crappy wooden, like as if you were to go to a camp or something, instead of like actually making it like the actual book itself. I don't think that you have to adapt something. I don't think you have to adapt something so literal because of the book. But I mean, you got to do it justice. You can't just like take the author's creation and just like be like, fuck it, we'll just do our own thing. I mean, that's stupid. That's the whole reason the book got popular, because people are imagining these worlds in their head. You have to pay attention. I don't understand. You can throw like $100 million budget at some movie, but it's like you got to do, like, you can't do it without a passion. It's like not giving a shit about it. It's like someone getting hired to direct Percy Jackson and then not even giving a shit about it. Being like, okay, well, what's the cheapest way to do this and make it like whatever, like they're not really looking at making it good. They're looking at just making it. I never understood that, but I was going to at least check out the movies, see how they are. I think there's only 2 movies, but I'm going to finish the book series. I'm on book number 2. I believe it's The Sea of Monsters, but I'm going to at least finish all 5 books and see how the series is, because I've heard it has a good ending to it, but that's definitely, one of the ones that I want to check out, the movies. I think there was something else that I wanted to talk about. I'm probably going to have to edit out this silence, but crap, man. I forgot what I was going to talk about. There was something to deal with Percy Jackson. Oh, a series of unfortunate events. A series of unfortunate events. See, that's a series that I read where they have 13 books in a series, and it's a series of unfortunate events with Count Olaf and these 3 children who are orphans, essentially, because this is not a spoiler, even though there is a Netflix series that is not a spoiler, because that happens within like the first couple pages of the books, but they become orphans. They're from a rich family in the Baudelaire family. Their parents die, or #die in a mysterious fire, so I've read all those books, and I've slowly been watching the series of unfortunate events on Netflix. And Netflix has an original series for series of unfortunate events. I know I'm kind of all over the place, but so they've adapted it pretty well. But I think what they did is that they went their own way. Not so far, but there's certain plot points that they have that I read in the book that they chose not to go with in the actual TV series, which could change the outcome of the story. So it's actually interesting to not only read the books, but also to have a completely different a different adaptation of the books to the TV show. Another thing about it is Neil Patrick Harris does an awesome job with Count Olaf. Like, I don't know what it is. It's his humor or whatever, but I love that he treats him like that. Like, treats him like crap. Because he's like he just says these funny lines, and he just pulls off the character so well. I don't know what it is, but he just always pulls off the character so well. It fits him like perfectly. That's another thing that has been going on, in my life in terms of like, watching movies, reading stuff, or whatever. But I figured I'd want to talk about this stuff. A little bit of information. I just submitted my podcast to get on iTunes. So wherever you're listening this from, I have it submitted on iTunes. And I think they're checking it for a review because they sent me an email. So it should be up in the next couple of days, hopefully. I'm still trying to figure out some intro music or something, like an intro. And if you can help me with that, feel free to email me or whatever at topictantrum@gmail.com. I'm not looking for you guys to do work for me, but I feel like my skills are so crappy. Like, even the artwork is like so bare minimum or minimalistic. I just try to do with what I know. So even the podcast artwork still maybe needs a little update, but I'm happy with it. I want some intro music because I feel like sometimes it gets a little bit boring just going straight into talking. I think that's all for now, feel free, check me out on Instagram at Orbit317. Feel free to email me at topictantrum@gmail.com. If you're subscribing to this from iTunes, feel free to leave me a review. Any feedback helps, whether it's review, an email, or whatever, because literally I'm just doing this with no idea of what I'm doing. And I think that's the only way to reach me. I do have a Twitter. I forgot what my Twitter is. It's like Orbit317 maybe. That's my personal Twitter. Like I use Twitter more to read stuff than I do to actually post stuff. Oh, and another thing, I started uploading my podcast to YouTube. So I have a channel, Topic Tantrum. So if you happen to have like YouTube Red, like where you can turn off YouTube while listening to podcasts and it won't like interrupt it, it won't stop the video. But if you want to listen free that way, feel free to listen to that way. But I try and upload it there too. That's recently what's been going on, a little bit of like, housekeeping stuff. But until next week, feel free to listen to my old backdated episode, which is like, 3 weeks. But yeah, anyway, thank you again for tuning in. Feel free to give me feedback, and I will see you guys, when I see you. Hope you have a good week. Bye.